All right. Listen, we've got our critical mass here joining us. And so let's get underway here. We are excited. We're just over the year mark of doing these practice habits sessions. I'm excited that we have gone this far, Courtney, before we have talked about our own business. So I'm excited today to introduce one of my very best friends and business partner, Courtney Davidson. Listen, everybody, I want to tell you why we're doing this. You've probably heard it on previous calls because many of you have been on this before, but Practice Habits was created to help support practices in their decision making. One of the things we found out here in the Midwest, where I used to run a practice, is that there's a lot of innovation that takes place, a lot of implementation of new things, and administrators and practice leaders have to be great at real estate, team culture, coding, billing, compliance, clinical, marketing, SEO, and all of the other things. Those are just the ones that came to mind. And yet we don't have a lot of support to teach us how to do those things, nor do we have the expertise. And this is just a way now that I'm out of the saddle officially as a practice leader, though a consultant to many. Practice Habits is to just share industry insights on how others can manage their practice better. So we try to hold it weekly, and it's just our way of giving back. We don't get anything for it other than everybody. Unfortunately, has to look at me for an hour. Today, I'm joined by my business partner, Courtney, and Courtney's been a part of MJM for 8 years now.
Mhm.
She'll correct me in some of my introductions, but we've known each other since 2000, when we worked for one of the regions, definitely the region's largest ad agency. I was just on my way out because I was about to join Vance Thompson Vision as the CEO there. She was on her way in, helping manage practices and helping manage different clients. And so we grew up in the marketing world, and we knew right from the get-go that as MJM started to grow and as our practice, Vance Thompson Vision, began to grow, boy, we were going to need to have somebody who could be at the helm of the marketing team. And so Courtney was that for us. Since then, she's become a partner. She's definitely a strategic mind and friend, and helps us make some of the big hard decisions, as do others on the team. Some of our team members are there. I see Shannon and Katie and others. And so I want to welcome you, Courtney. Maybe tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm honored to be here today. Thanks for having me. I typically am seated behind the scenes, kind of helping run things for Practice Habits. So it's fun to be on the presenter side. A little bit about me, like Matt said, we met back in 2000, and little funny thing, as he went to Vance Thompson Vision while I was still at that agency, I then became his account executive. So then we got to continue working together prior to when MJM was born. And so I was at that agency for 10 years. And I would classify it as a traditional advertising agency. And we did a lot of really great work, but different work than what we do at MJM, I would say. And so I left there, became a director of marketing for a local healthcare marketing, or a healthcare entity that was a franchised opportunity. So there were 3 stores at the time, and it was a weight loss program, and brought it to 50 stores. So was there for 6 years doing that. And then over those 6 years, Matt was kind of behind the scenes recruiting me, and I finally said yes 8 years ago. It's been a great 8 years, and I look at the agency, when we very first started to where we are now, and we've seen a lot of great growth. And honored to be your business partner, Matt. And I think that we are a good yin and yang. You have amazing qualities and assets that I don't have, and I would then beg to say that I have other things that you maybe don't have, and then so we're a really good fit in that. And I think that that also helps kind of bleed into the culture that we're trying to build at MJM. So,
Yeah, so
um,
let's talk about some of the history of MJM, because you're in an agency who literally came from a practice and surgery center, and a lot of people wonder what we mean by that. What do we mean by that?
yeah. So when I think we as you, when you were at Vance Thompson Vision, had needs from a marketing perspective, you were able to alleviate the current agency and be able to bring on what started as freelancers at the time, and people that could do all of that creative work for a practice because they knew and understood what was happening within the practice walls. That then translated into freelancers coming in, being hired full-time team members, and they were actually physically within a practice within Vance Thompson Vision for quite a few years, literally all in the same room. They could go in and watch surgery. They could understand the clinic flow. They could follow a patient experience. And so I think that really helped elevate what they were bringing to the table from a marketing perspective, and knew and understood it. And we've been able to kind of work and leverage that from just understanding the ophthalmology space. And while I thought when I was on the agency side at the traditional agency, when I was your account executive, I thought I knew what Vance Thompson Vision was, but it wasn't really until I transitioned over to MJM that I realized, like, oh no, there's something different about being able to go in and watch a surgery and understand, all the technology and use all the words that the team is using. And fun fact, I actually, before I went into marketing, thought I was going to be an ophthalmologist. So in high school, that was what I thought I was going to do. Couldn't make it through anatomy class. I didn't have the stomach for it. So then I went to marketing, and now I market for ophthalmology, which was kind of a fun little, twist of fate. So
That's funny. I also wanted to go into eye care, and they took one look at my grades and said, how about advertising? It's easier to spell. We're gonna just let's slow roll this a little bit. You've got to to kind of stay in your lane. Maybe before we go into Courtney, some of the things that makes MJM different. Because listen,
yeah,
there's a lot of people we work with. We play well with others. I
yeah,
see Cade's on the call. He did a great job of lead fulfillment. There's others on the call who we've partnered with in the digital world, and or we featured here before, like. Glacial and others. But maybe on slide 11, just pop up the logos of some of the folks we work with,
oh,
because
yeah.
it looks like it's a diverse spread, but there's actually some pretty unique niches. Maybe share with everybody the couple of categories that we really try to specialize in.
Yes. Oh, 1 second. I was pausing the screen so I could go to that slide, and then, had an issue. Okay, let me unpause my resume share. Does that work?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Yes. So we break our work into the traditional agency type space, doing the type of work that we do for practices. So we have this whole arm of practice work that we do. That typically includes, traditional media placement and all of the things that go along with that, as well as kind of getting in dirty with the operations on the work that, are you picking up your phone? What is the scripting? So we really think about the whole patient experience, not just the advertising. We'll go into that more in a little bit. So that is one area where we have a whole host of clients. And then we have another area, which is a lot of industry partners. And so what makes, I think, MJM unique to those types of individuals or those types of businesses is the fact that we were born out of a practice. And so because we know and understand that deeply and still have relationships with practices, we can kind of have some discussions with people that are still within the practice to be able to say, does this work if we're creating content for a sales team or for an industry, group? Can that work? Is that going to be able to be leveraged within a practice? And so it's a nice symbiotic relationship. And I think that is one of the unique things that I've found about MJM. And then the third area, we have a few local clients that we like to do work with, as well as a host of nonprofits. So lower fee or no fee work. And we feel like it is our duty to be able to do good work for those that, probably need it most. And so you'll see a host of nonprofit organizations within the logo set that's on this screen as well. Anything you'd add, Matt?
Yeah, so I would just say that the two categories, just like you mentioned, we've been tempted to really dive into traditional agency work because the people knock on our door to do so. We like being nichey, but one of the things that we find is that people who believe in the messages that we write in the ophthalmology world very rarely wake up the next day and regret their purchase. Right? I mean, this is a really benevolent offering that we all share in this craft, and so it's easy to get behind it. And secondly, then the other 25% of our time, because ophthalmology in healthcare is the majority, is nonprofit, oftentimes ministry or gospel-based work that has even, we would say, longer value. And so, and so it's really easy to get behind good messaging and strategy for both. The thing I'll transition to, and I mean, we don't even need to have the slides up for this, Courtney, but you and I talk a lot about this acronym OPERA, and it's definitely unwritten, but it's a four category conversation about how we approach the work. Can you give an overview of what we mean by it? It's just an acronym, but it's helpful for memory.
Yes, of course. So I think this too is what, when I came to work at MJM, this was the biggest aha moment for me, because I had always thought about work we do at an ad agency as the advertising, the paid marketing, yes, boots on the ground and those types of things. But you really opened my eyes to thinking about it much more broad. And so OPERA stands for operations. And then I actually am gonna show the screen just
Okay,
because
that's fine.
I do
Yeah, of
have it
course.
up. That will, I think, will help everybody be able to see that. So operations, and then it transitions into experience, then to referral, and then and only then, once we've done and made everything super exceptional in all of those areas, should we do advertising. And so we think about it as the whole picture, versus most often agencies are, I didn't mean to hit that, sorry guys, are strictly focused on the paid side and bringing people in. And I have a fun story that I remember, a year or two into our coming to work at MJM, and we had a practice on the East Coast come to us, and they had 12 practices. They had a big board that they were reporting to, and they wanted billboards, and they wanted all of this paid media. And we're like, well, sure, we could do that. And you picked up the phone and you called the practice, and you were on hold for, I think, over 15 minutes before you got to anybody. And it was kind of like, we went back to them and said, you know what you really need to focus on is your operations first. Yes, we can do the marketing, but we need to think about what is happening, from every stage of that patient experience. And their team was not on board. They're like, we don't, if you aren't picking up your phone, it doesn't matter how good our advertising is over here. Nobody is going, your board is going to continually be disappointed, and it will be MJM's fault. I don't think we're a good fit for you as an organization. And I remember thinking, wow, like, one, super awesome that you were willing to walk away from a project or potential monetary, opportunity, because it wasn't the right fit for us at MJM. And so I've tried to lean into that, I think, as we're having conversations with client and fit. And we really want to be thinking about the bigger picture and asking the tough questions. Yes, we are very good at advertising and running promotions, and we do a lot of that. But we're going to ask you about what is your on hold time. We're going to ask you about what is your appointment, your call volume. And then beyond that, what is it going to be able to say, like, are you converting those into actual patients? Are you converting those into surgeries? And that was never part of the dialogue when I was at the, other ad agency for 10 years. And we did a lot of really good work there. Don't get me wrong. I just think that this has kind of opened my eyes. And I feel like that is kind of a unique selling proposition of, if you're going to work with the MJM, we're going to try and bring those things to the table, and be able to have smart strategic conversations based upon opera.
Yeah, I like that. I'm reminded about some of my first weeks with Vance in 2004. And we had just moved into our clinic in a health system, and I walked into this back room where the phones were being answered. And I remember the team members' names were Cheryl and Kelly. And their little red lights on their phones were blinking like crazy red, and they're both on the phone. And I'm going back there. I don't know anything about healthcare, and I think every business has a marketing solution, an advertising solution, because of where I grew up.
Right.
And um, I kind of waved at him like I wanted to talk to him, and Kelly um, put the patient on hold, and she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Hey, how's it going?" She's like, "Good." And I said, "What are all the red blinky lights?" And she said, "Oh, well, it goes red when there's a person on hold." And I said, "Well, okay, so yours is blinking really fast. What does that mean?" She said, "Yeah, mine means I have four people on hold." And Cheryl's was just like that. And it was just it was my first, it was like a front row seat to waste. Like we need to only the only thing we're doing right now is frustrating prospects. We need to
Hmm.
stop the marketing. We need to say, slow roll this. We definitely need to hire more people. We need to do a better job of training and queuing. But that was the first time that I had to eat crow because I had kind of built my profession around lead generation, and that wasn't the problem. The problem was managing it, and
Hmm.
that's kind of led to some of the beliefs that we have. We have a mantra that you helped us establish through our experience economy and design thinking, Courtney, that it's the experience that's the marketing.
Hmm.
Sometimes we might even use ads, you know,
Right. Yeah.
uh, to
Yeah.
uh, to make the phone ring. Maybe we talked about operations and then experience, and then R is for referrals, and then A is for advertising. Maybe you talked about the phones being an operations-based example.
Yes.
What would be an example of experience design, or how does MJM, fall into that bucket?
Yeah. So we think about experience design all the way from, it ties very closely with the operations as well because we often refer to every stage of the patient experience. And so we're thinking not only what is happening at, if we do advertising and somebody is calling, what's happening at the phone call, what's happening when they walk into our first impressions area, what's happening when they're in the consult, and what are the marketing things that we can create to be able to deliver a great customer experience no matter where they are in the patient journey. And oftentimes those types of things then lead to operations discussions, but we're trying to elevate each of those areas, maybe highlight some non-negotiables with the practice that is, we are always going to do this. We're never going to do this. And because of that, we've created this little piece of material that we're going to, hand out at this particular stage of your experience. And so we're trying to have those conversations beyond just, yes, I can make a pretty brochure. We can make a pretty brochure. We will make a pretty brochure, but like why? And ask the questions. Is that going to improve the patient experience? Is that going to hinder the patient experience? And what are the other things that we can do to enhance it? So when you think about, and it doesn't matter if something goes wrong at any stage of that patient experience, then that's a broken chain or a broken link in the chain. And then it doesn't matter how good anything else was. If somebody didn't like your billing process, they're going to tell you it's not a good experience. And so then we're having to have conversations about, making sure that they're not giving the word of mouth. They're not doing the referrals then. So all of those instances are happening, based upon success at every stage of the patient experience.
Courtney, what's been your in your team's experience? Ask this for both industry and practices because we work with both. What's the what project are you most proud of that has been done on behalf of a practice in the last few years?
Ooh, that's a good question. What project? Oh, there's so many. But I would say the project that I'm most happy about would be, gosh, I love the work that we get to do for Vance Thompson Vision every time they open a new location and bring on a new surgeon. We have this whole surgeon package that they truly believe no matter what location that they have. Like I am proud of the deliverable that you would never know that it has been, well, since I've been here, 8 years of different creative that we've had to deliver over the time, over that time, because they're opening new locations each and every year. And it feels cohesive all the way through. And everybody just will watch those TV spots or their long format videos and be like, wow, like that really helped bring the surgeon to life. That was super engaging. We can use it in all different ways. And so that's very traditional. So I'm very pleased about that, though, because I think it's hard to do. The bigger you get, the harder it is to kind of remain cohesive and have one brand. And I feel like we've had a hand in that and got to be a part of it. And I get to be a part of some of those interviews. And then now, like, training the rest of the MJM team. Thanks, Jamie. I just saw your note. She says that she can confirm that. That's very sweet of you. But I think that, but now it's beyond just you and me, Matt. I mean, I think that we're trying to be able to, if we're not in the room, how are we training our team to be able to do those same things? And so I'm very proud of that.
It's interesting. First of all, Jamie, nice. It's a first response from a plant in the audience. Jamie helps run the marketing for Vance Thompson Vision, and especially the optometric relations for all the marketplace, all the markets. But Courtney, one of the things that I love about what you said is that that launch packet includes you said a long format video.
Yeah.
Now, we're not talking about vignettes to send to patients prior to their surgery or their clinic visit. That's important. That's tactical. We're talking about kind of an expose, a 3 to 5 minute a short film, introducing the doctor to the marketplace, full on lit with film, on location, helping people understand how this doctor interacts with their loved ones, their community. We might go out into a field and film them hunting or fishing or hiking. And the doctor is the hero, right? Because we want to be relatable. And I think it's really important. A lot of times we become so enamored with tactical output, what directly is going to do the lead gen, that we forget to tell the story of the human behind the work. And especially in an offering like ours, which is so hinged upon visual outcomes, visual identity. So to be able to see and almost like taste and smell and feel the prairie when Vance walks out onto the prairie, and to know that that kind of background and that kind of style of thinking goes into his everyday thoughts about being a great surgeon. It's part of an incredible story. And then, by the way, you get to use that footage for, decades,
Right.
because there's great B-roll from it.
Yeah.
So I'd agree with that one. Although it's fun lately, and Jamie will attest to this too, because I'm going to answer my same question for you.
Okay, good.
It's been fun to see the practices do well at seminars. And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
mostly because that's not big brand stuff. That's real direct call to action. And we heard um, uh, Michael King talk about that a few weeks ago. He's doing it digitally. We're doing in-person ones, and it's been an absolute joy to see people come out of the woodwork again, because they're looking for some kind of empirical or authoritative representation of this offering, and they don't feel like they can get it online, and so they're coming up in real life again, which is how we started in our craft. So it's been really fun to get back to some of those old tactics, although we promote them in different ways now.
Right.
Uh, that's, I feel like, high ground. Any of the doctors we work with, if we can put a doctor in front of their patients or marketplace, we'll win. We will just win.
And
Let's.
oh, go ahead. What were you
No,
going
no,
to say?
you go ahead. I'll let you finish that thought.
One of the things that, you bring up seminars, and again, another tactic, but I'm really excited. We haven't done them yet, but they're getting ready to do a road show at Vance Thompson Vision, and take it to local markets. And that was something I remember working on with you back in the day when they'd go down to Sioux City and we'd run a newspaper ad talking about the upcoming seminar. So yes, we're promoting things different, but those things were working, and I am super excited that they are thinking differently and willing to entertain. It's time and commitment, but doing the hard work to be able to get out. and not all doctors are willing to entertain those crazy conversations from us marketers, but I am really appreciative and I can't wait to see how the road shows go, so we can report back on that because those in each of the local markets is going really well. But yeah, lots of fun
Yeah.
stuff ahead.
Let's talk about some of our industry partners because we've partnered then with the folks that help practices grow, and we've helped
Yes.
them with marketing as well, from large publicly traded companies to, the small niche companies that are just coming out
Yes.
into the marketplace. What's been your favorite concept there over the last few years?
Okay, so I have two. It's going to be hard to narrow down. I mean, I think I look at like the holistic work that we have done with RX site from the very beginning. Like it started as a small little one-off project. We're going to do a video. Because one thing that I think I didn't mention earlier that's important for everybody here to have context is like we are a smaller agency. We are a subject matter expert. You said we play nice with others, and I really think that we do. And it's because we're not big enough to be able to be the big agency for some of these huge industry partners, but we do have this really interesting niche that we can like bring to the table and partner with others to be able to kind of like collaborate bigger. And because of that, that's kind of how our relationship started 6 years ago with RX site. And it was a small video project. We kind of proved ourselves. We understood the things that were, happening in the ophthalmology world. And then it kind of built in, and we did become their agency of record. And just like the magnitude of work that we were able to produce over the last 6 years, from content of that is video, but then all the way to, advertising, trade publications, doing the messaging to other healthcare providers, designing booth designs, all of that stuff of everything that's taking place at, the industry conferences. So that one isn't necessarily one specific thing, but I think that I will look back on my career and be like, I'm really proud of that work and that we got to be a part of it and that we got to help somebody start small and like grow big.
Well, and it was a 0 to 1 conversation, right?
Right.
There's nothing like it before. There's nothing like it on the horizon. And that you're right. That was a really fun kind of category creation that was fun. We learned a
Right.
lot and it was a blast.
So my other one would be one of our newer clients and relationships as I think about what has grown with Brevium specifically. Not that anybody that is on here, I mean, we have lots of super awesome clients, but we got to do some really fun stuff with an upcoming launch that they had in April. And it started with just kind of conversations that you were having more strategically with them over time and helping practices grow. And that is a really great opportunity in interventional glaucoma. And what can you do in that particular space? And so it started with just, multiple conversations. Let's just have coffee or a Zoom or some meeting at one of the industry events. And then it kind of turns into something. And when they had a recent launch plan, we were able to kind of do some creative that pulled everything together to have a super awesome launch event at the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. And I would say, although I banged my head on the TV as people were walking in and I thought I was going to knock myself out, that was a bummer. But other than that, I think that was a super awesome time. And you always like hold your breath when you're doing event planning. Like, are people going to show up? Like people RSVP'd, but are people going to show up? And then to have that room filled and have so many great conversations and to know that we had a part of that, and then to be able to partner with them on things now post event because of that success, I think is super awesome. And so that's kind of a more recent one too. So, hey,
Awesome.
thanks,
We're hearing
Lance.
from plant number two, Lance. Thank you. That was a fun one. That's kind of a long lead time
It
because,
was.
I've been friends with the folks at Brevium and never a client, by the way. I mean, Vance Thompson Vision hadn't used them. I just knew of them and knew they helped a bunch of other practices that we
Yeah.
worked with, and knew that they really have, a specific offering that really helped. And boy, did that ever change when they came up with their elite product. And I agree, that was a lot of fun and it was scrappy, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
was like this, what small business should be in our world. I'm gonna match you because I want
Okay,
to talk about a
perfect.
couple of industry things, but I think the first time we started to work with industry instead of just practices was around 2010 and 11 when we did a big national project for TLC. and we did all of their training for their laser centers. That's when we kind of Vance and I started to believe that what we have can and should be bottled and shared with others. That quickly turned into, we were just starting to, I won't say perfect because it's not perfect, but we were just getting into the advanced IOL and cataract surgery world. And crystal lens had been around for 5 years. And next thing you know, there's a femtosecond laser. And we're speaking, Dr. John Berdal and I, at Alcon's national sales meeting in 2012 as to how you get practices to adopt that. And 2 years later, when Bausch had their launch of Victus, not only are we doing that sales meeting, but we're running the coursework for the non-sales folks, all the BDMs and all of the frontline folks, and how we approach the practice, and really trying to break down how do you segment different groups. Do you target practices that are just doing straight up high volume, or practices that own their own surgery centers? And I remember thinking of different case studies to challenge the team as to how they would better approach a practice. And so I think that I share those too, because I think they're fun advantages that we were blessed to have only because of the unique visibility we had
Yeah.
into the practice.
Right.
We wouldn't have been relevant had it not been for our proximity to the work getting done. And that's just a real blessing. You have to put up numbers and you have to do the work, but what was a real blessing was to be able to do that, and then come back and also, having learned what everybody's talking about, apply it to our practice. So we
Right.
felt like back and forth, we were bringing our best to the industry side, learning, bringing great ideas back to the practice side. And it was this virtuous cycle of improvement that I think was really, it was uplifting. So,
You touched on something though that I think is interesting, and I think about, the longevity that we've had with Vance Thompson Vision, and it's almost always used as kind of like a caliber. Everybody wants to aspire in the practice world to be Vance Thompson Vision. But one of the things that I have enjoyed over time as we've worked with other practices, there are other interesting and unique things that other practices are doing. And we've been able to then like also bring some of those pearls back to Vance Thompson Vision. And at the beginning, I remember thinking like, I don't know, are we going to be able to bring or teach them anything? And or because of our industry knowledge, we're able to better write the brochures that we're doing because we understand the technology, et cetera. So I hope that they would agree on that too, that I feel like I get excited when we get to help teach them something, or like bring a new technology, like you should be thinking about bringing this into your practice, or
yeah.
let's look at this particular thing, because those people want Vance Thompson Vision to be a part of their, to use their services. And so a lot of them are coming to them directly. But when we have like, hey, this worked really well for another practice, and it's not just a cold call, we can give them kind of a warm nudge. You should look into this. I think about Boost and some of the callback that we had done, and there's a handful of them, but I personally get excited. It's kind of like also when the designers on our design team, because I do photography on the side, and that's a random fact, but like when I get to help teach them some kind of little design trick that I've learned on photo retouching or whatever, I get so excited when I'm like, I
Yeah.
taught you something. So I feel like that also is kind of how it is, when I get to like, when we get to bring some of those things to Vance Thompson Vision too.
Well, it's a really good example because I noticed on the call Patty Barkey's here, and she ran a great practice, and now she's on the corporate side with Bausch. But that's a good example of a practice that we've learned from, that we can bring best practices back, and to Vance Thompson Vision or others, because we've got
Great.
several practices we work with. But that's kind of how you continue to perfect or create an offering that's nichey. And I do think that there's real power in being a subject matter expert. Listen, I haven't gotten to any or all of our questions, Courtney, but maybe what I'll have you do is maybe pull up the slide with our next week's person,
Yes.
or while everybody else is coming up with their questions for us. And I encourage you to ask Courtney really
All the
hard
hard
ones.
questions.
All the hard questions. And if you need a glamour shot question or a softball, I'll handle those.
Okay, sounds good.
What's the worst thing about working with Matt?
We don't have enough time, my friend.
Yeah, I have a
Like,
serious
I mean, we're
question.
partners, but I don't want to. No, um, there. I think that, like I said earlier, I think we complement each other well, and nothing is more true than, like, I would say, a work marriage. We have to be able to work together. I appreciate Matt will let me challenge him, and Matt will challenge me, and it is always met with, like, we may not agree, but we're gonna be able to, I feel comfortable enough to be able to have those conversations, and I haven't always had that in my corporate world, and I think that that is very important and something that I also try to take back to, like, the team. And Matt has so many good ideas. So if there's a bad, like, that is a very, very positive about Matt, but sometimes, like, chasing those ideas down because he has so many good ideas, that would be the biggest challenge that sometimes I face. But I feel like I've started to master it to, like, 80 to 85%. He'd have to say whether or not he agrees. But now with Shannon on the team and some of the other team members, I've been able to, like, between all of us, I feel like we can catch all of those ideas, but that also is what makes him good at what he does. And I'm like, dang, I wish I could have thought of that. So I don't know. But Matt, I would
Yeah.
ask you that question of me. Like, what's the hardest thing about working with me?
Well, I don't, Courtney, I don't accept. There's nothing hard about working with you. Too bad you took the bait for Cade.
My, my
Um,
real question was, like, when practices come to you guys, do they just immediately jump to bring me more new patients? So that'd be my first question. I guess the second part of that is, how do you guys try to, peel them back a bit from just being hyper focused on generating new patient leads and starting with, messaging or brand or all the other parts that are a part of that equation? So how do you guys handle all that?
Cade, this is a well-worn path, and it's not so unlike our industry, right? When people call in for LASIK to a practice, they've got one question: how much? Right? And just like people who call us, they've got one thing in mind: how can I get more patients? Which, by the
And how
way,
fast?
I can't fault them for that. That's the chief end of marketing is to
Right.
is to secure leads. By the way, people ask that about LASIK because it's the only thing that's common. That it's the only thing they know about it is that there's a price, and they know that there's a price. That's a really important thing because we've been telling them, hammering them over the head for 20 years that that's the only thing that they should be interested in. That's all we
Mhm.
communicate to them. Pet peeve. Okay. So a lot of conversations start like that with us as well. I need more leads, and we can talk about that, but we'll start to ask questions. How do you process the leads now? How many leads do you have now? Oh, you don't know how many. You just need more revenue. Okay, how many open spots do you have? Oh, I don't know how many open spots we have. Okay, how many did you lose yesterday? What's your no-shows like? And it'll start to create this spirit of if you were to engage and separate yourself from the hard-earned dollars, like this group on the East Coast that Courtney was telling us about, if we were to convince you to make that spend, how will we know in 90 days that it was worth it?
Mhm.
If you're not measuring now. And this is why advertising gets a bad rap. Now, the fun part is we're willing to do that work, and we delight in it. Not as much as you do, by the way. And I mean that. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I love this forum is because I see Dylan. I don't know if Dylan, if you've ever missed one of these practice habits, it makes me so happy to see you come in. Whether you're here early or 10 minutes late, you keep chipping away at just being
Appreciate that, Matt.
yeah, your organization is a great partner to practices. And we can't actually go to practices and answer the phone, but many of you can. And so, but it's really getting that awakening early in the conversation, Cade.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, one of my mentors early on said, a great idea that's not executed on is not worth having. And it's one of those things where I can't disagree more. One of the pure joys in life is to be creative. I think it points back to, core creation belief set that's like, you know, worldview that we're something about the human spirit wants to be creative. And so even if you can't execute on it, that you can dream it. Um, I mean, sometimes it's even healthy just to brainstorm, knowing you're never going to execute on it, just to exercise it. And
Mhm.
so I think Courtney's right. My biggest sin, at least professionally, is that I kind of don't shut it off, and I can send the team off in a lot of directions trying to chase down those things. And I like to think I'm getting better. I think I'm just being managed, not getting better. But what other questions do you guys have?
We did so well. Nobody has questions, Matt.
Courtney, if people want to learn more about you, where do they do that?
Where do they learn more about me?
Yeah.
At LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn page and probably should be a bit more active on that LinkedIn page. I'm always taking care of everybody else on LinkedIn versus myself at times, as we all know. And then, at Courtney at Min Join Make, if you're wanting to reach out or have me answer any questions, that's my email. So you can reach out to me there. Yeah.
Love
I'm
it.
trying to think.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
Courtney,
Anything
thanks
else?
for being a part of the session today. I look forward to doing this again with you in the future. I'm glad we could talk about all of our friends and business partners and otherwise first, and that we're going last. Some of them we've heard a couple of times, and we'll hear about again as they've offered new things. Look forward to Convert Health being a featured uh, presenter on one of these calls here soon. I want to invite everybody to the session we're having next week. We're going to have Dr. Vance Thompson back, and that's going to be super exciting. He's going to talk about team culture. This is, listen, one of the, he's an amazing surgeon, great thinker, but he's an even better human being. And he's going to be talking about the most important asset you have, which is all the people who are part of your practice that you meet with every single day, your practice or your business office. So join us then. We have a whole slate of summer planned out that we'll start to share, so you can register ahead of time. And please continue to invite others to sessions like this. You can find them on practicehabits.com. And listen, if it's going to take all of our effort to become perfect, we know practice takes perfect, and that practices require habits. So make it a habit today. Thanks for joining.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll send the link out to the recording. If you registered, they'll send it out after as well. And then it can also be found on Practice Habits /webinars. So you can find it there.
Thanks,
Cool,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.